It is 7 o'clock, so we would like to call this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. As you know, our president, Stacy Oliver, is somewhere on a cruise ship, so I'll do my best to guide this meeting. We'll start with a roll call. Jennifer, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Faber.
Here.
Ms. Rubin.
Here.
Ms. Christian.
Here.
Ms. Oliver. Mr. Patel.
Here.
Ms. Spector Bishop.
Here.
Ms. Unical.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Our first item is the consent agenda. And before we vote on this, I'll ask if there are any items anyone would like to remove from the agenda for separate consideration. If not, we'll move forward and I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved. Second. Jennifer, can you please do a roll call?
Mr. Faber. Ms. Rubin.
Yes.
Ms. Christian.
Yes.
Mr. Patel.
Yes.
Ms. Spector Bishop.
Yes.
Ms. Unical.
Yes.
Thank you. We're moving on to public comments, and I do not see any members of the public here. And so we will move on to our staff report. Kate.
All right. I actually am going to have Becky and Kelly give a couple updates first. Becky has an update from our latest qualitative survey with Lily Zhang. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Good evening, everyone. Back in April, Lily Zhang and their consulting firm conducted a very short 2-question follow-up with our staff. We have done a large assessment in the fall of 2023 with them, as well as 4 pulse surveys. And this 2-question follow-up was an idea that Lily Zhang came up with to kind of address lower scores we saw on the Q4 pulse survey that was conducted in the winter spring of 2025. There were low scores on staff leadership respect, psychological safety, and they had the suggestion that if we did this short 2-question follow-up survey, we could get additional insights, and that by them conducting it, hopefully people would feel even more confident to give some insightful feedback, and we could get some very actionable recommendations, because we heard from the Board of Trustees that we wanted to be action-oriented and forward-looking at what leadership can do to improve these scores before we do a larger base assessment again in the fall of 2025. So in April, that survey was conducted, and Lily Zhang put together a report that had recommendations in it, and the leadership team met and decided to adopt 4 of those recommendations that Lily Zhang proposed. So I'm going to go through those 4 areas with you briefly now. The first recommendation being that leadership shows appreciation for all feedback received, and that we share responses to anonymous feedback submitted during all staff meetings. This is a departure from what was done previously in that we have an anonymous feedback form that administration managed and would respond to during all staff emails. But Lily, in the spirit of a feedback-friendly culture, by doing it in an all-staff meeting in person, we can further set the tone from the top and show that feedback is valuable, it's welcomed, and feedback truly is like a gift from our staff. The second recommendation we've adopted from Lily is to continue to demonstrate strong communication, particularly in the areas of transparency around decision-making and how staff feedback was used in those decisions. Third, this next recommendation involves managers. It's that leadership and managers take turn running managers' meetings. So we have 2 managers' meetings per month, and Lily's recommendation to have the rotating facilitation of those meetings. It can create more engaging meetings, build stronger relationships among management and leadership, create a sense of shared ownership. And leadership knows there will be a learning curve to this, because currently the leadership has been kind of facilitating those meetings, but we are committed to providing the support, resources leading up to the shift to people sharing the load. The fourth recommendation is that leadership and management receives conflict coaching and or training. This is something the leadership is still exploring, and who will do that and how. And we communicated these adopted recommendations to management first and then the rest of the staff last month. And in addition, like I mentioned a little bit ago, Lily Zhang is going to do a larger assessment with us in the fall of 2025, aiming for September. And in order to be accountable, Lily is going to add 4 questions to the survey to track how closely leadership adheres to these recommendations, which we are completely in favor of because we want to hold ourselves accountable to these, what I feel as an HR professional, are very like SMART goals. They're specific, they're action-oriented, measurable, time bound, and so we are pleased to adopt these, and we welcome any questions.
Thank you, Becky. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the survey, Lily Zhang's recommendations?
I just think that they're well stated, they're actionable, and they're not written in stone. So if it's not giving us what you need, I hope that you'll feel comfortable amending, adapting,
Sure.
eliminating. And I really like the emphasis on mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you very much.
All right, so the next person we're going to hear from is Kelly, who's going to give us a bit of an update on our Joppy security work.
Yes, so we have been doing a lot behind the scenes with Jaffe. Right now, we are working on revising our emergency operations plans. We have a lot of different documents that we use procedurally to respond to incidents, establish a hierarchy of who's in charge. We have a person in charge program. And now we are getting all of that documentation together and creating an emergency response plan, which is going to be so much easier to use than what we currently have. And hoping to start rolling it out to staff at our April 1st staff training day. So we do have a late open, or August, sorry, August.
It's okay.
August 1st staff training day. We do have a late open on that date. So we'll start to implement that emergency operations plan. And then we also are working on our RFPs for security system upgrades, which were included for the fiscal year 26 budget. And we've decided that due to the broad scope of the projects, we are actually going to be doing 3 RFPs. So this summer, we're going to be releasing an RFP to upgrade our access control. Right now, a lot of our doors are physically keyed and we want to move to fobs on key doors, external and like meeting room doors. Maybe not every door, there's a lot of doors here. So we will still have some keys, but the key doors will be fobbed. And then also upgrading our intrusion alert system. So we've gone through drafts with our attorneys and our IT and facilities teams, as well as Liz's team over at Jaffe, and hoping to have something out sometime next month for folks to start to bid on. And then in the fall, we'll release a bid to upgrade our security cameras, and then in the winter to do our PA system. So we sort of walked away from trying to do it all within one big RFP because there were so many different specialties and components that we felt like vendors might want to do partial work, but not the entire scope of the work that we're hoping to get done for this fiscal year. So so we've decided to sort of chunk it into 3 different proposals.
Thank you, Kelly. Are there any questions for Kelly about that or comments? I know it's been a long time coming working on
I'm
this.
so excited.
Yeah.
We are where we are.
Good.
When was the last time, when were these systems put in, the intrusion alert system? Security camera?
Yeah, the intrusion alert system is probably 1999 or sooner. It's been around a long time.
It's vintage.
Cameras similarly, early 2000s, we did add some cameras when we redid the lobby in 2021, and we upgraded the software that we use for our security cameras last year. But it's an open source kind of low cost software that we're using. So so this will be a huge change for us.
Great. Thank you.
Long
Kelly.
time.
Yeah, long time coming.
Yeah. We tried multiple different ways of getting this done over the last couple of years and had not been successful finding a vendor that could help us like put together the RFPs until we started working with Jaffe. So it is really a very long time, Kelly. This will be, I think, Kelly's 3rd iteration of doing this. So,
Right.
so yeah. So I have a couple updates. I did put this in my report, but I just wanted to remind everyone that we have a couple events coming up. July 4th, we have the parade. I know many of you will be walking in it. Please remember to wear your summer reading or Northbrook Library shirts. Linda will be sending out a reminder. We won't know the parade route until closer, probably within a few days. And we will have bubbles again. So if you remember last year and used bubble wands, we have Nimesh to thank for helping the bubble machine to work. So we are excited to have that again. And then coming up just 6 days later, we do have our annual visit to a library. We're going to Schaumburg, and I miswrote in my report. I wrote this tour started at 7. It starts at 6. So just a reminder for everyone that don't listen to what I said, listen to what Jennifer sent. 6 p.m. and then we will be going to dinner at season 52 afterwards. So it's always a great opportunity to get to see what other libraries are doing. Their renovation was done by Product Architecture and Design, who we have been working with on all of our master plan stuff. So you'll get I think, a really good sense of what it looks like when they do a larger renovation. I also wanted to share a little bit of an IMLS update. Since I sent out the board packet, there has not been movement on the 2 lawsuits that are underway, but the Government of Office Accountability, the GOA, did release a 12-page report 2 days ago saying that the federal administration had no authority to defund or stop IMLS because the funding was appropriated by Congress. They are the only ones that have the authority to stop that. Now, the GOA does not have any authority. They are a recommendation agency. So that report, though, does go to Congress, and it will be up to Congress to listen to that report and hopefully take action. This is an opportunity where if you want to reach out to legislators, it's a great chance to share with them that this report exists and that it is something that we do hope that they will pay attention to. I know I talked to Representative Schakowsky at an event that Janet and I were at yesterday, and so that is something that I'll send you all information on tomorrow. But things continue to change with the IMLS stuff. We are, just as a reminder, one of the states that is of the 21 states that did file a lawsuit that is moving forward. One of the avenues for this is that if the lawsuit does go through, like let's say they ignore the GOA stuff, and let's say that, IMLS does start to be defunded, then if this lawsuit is successful by these 21 states, we would still get our funding. Unfortunately, the states that did not file, they would not. So Illinois continues to be we are a very proactive state in terms of supporting and protecting libraries, in large part thanks to our Secretary of State and State Librarian, Secretary Janulius. And so we are very grateful, but we also have a very vocal library community, and I think that helps as well. One of the things that there's been a lot of chatter about that isn't IMLS, but it's IMLS adjacent. There was a recent lawsuit in Texas where the Texas courts said that I should have written out so that my brain doesn't, because it's all very complicated. The Texas courts said that library materials are not protected speech, that they are considered government speech, and therefore they can be restricted. So basically, it's saying the First Amendment doesn't apply to materials on the shelves in the libraries, and that library boards and state legislature can allow the banning of materials. This is a massive blow to intellectual freedom and, is against all the core principles that libraries have stood for over 100 years. It is, of course, being challenged but we don't know what will happen. And so the fact that we in Illinois have a state that is actively seeking to prohibit book banning and to encourage boards to support intellectual freedom is an incredibly wonderful thing. And so you know, we as a state and the public libraries and school and special and academic in our state are very lucky. And the rest of the country is not necessarily as lucky as we are. So this is something that even though we have this, it is still important for all of us to speak out and talk about the importance of this.
And I would add, it is never good to be an island.
100%. That is also true.
We're safe now.
Yes. But
It can change.
so I do not do a good job of then having like something happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer any questions about anything else that is in my report. Summer reading is going phenomenally well, and the children are really happy. And we have a lot of very happy adults as well. There,
Good to know.
I ended on something happier.
Any questions or comments about anything Kate has shared with us tonight? Mhm. All right, we'll move on to board member reports. Do any of our board members have anything to share? I will share that Kate and I did have the pleasure of attending the reopening, I suppose you'd call it, of the
Yeah.
new Northfield Township Food Pantry yesterday. It is
Amazing.
amazing and remarkable. They've done a remarkable job and raised a large amount of money in a short amount of time. And it was sort of jaw-droppingly,
Yeah,
looks like a grocery store.
yeah.
And it was going to be a wonderful community asset. And I did notice, and did you notice in the front, they had a whole section with a small library.
A
of
little free
books.
library.
Free library for any kids who are coming in while their parents are.
And we've connected them with the friends so that if they need restocking, the friends are.
Happy to be there. So,
I'll share that I took my daughter to the summer reading sign up and she like loved that break the code
Oh, yeah. And
scavenger hunt. She
did
went
she
all over
crack
the library, she cracked the code. And there was a line in the children's area to sign up for the summer reading. So like it was really popular. I'm sure you all know this stuff. And she also especially loved the decor that they did at that area. Like she turned the corner and gasped and was just not like jumping like Mario. And she thought it was really cool. So like kudos to everyone who worked on that. It was a great
I will
experience.
pass along those. Yeah. Yeah. The staff do an amazing job decorating and making it fun for the kids and for the adults too.
all right, if there are no more board reports, we'll move on to unfinished business. And we'll begin with a discussion around the Park District Facilities Cooperative Intergovernmental Agreement. No action needed tonight, but
Yeah. Kelly is going to give us an update.
All right.
Yeah, so you might recall from last month, we talked about the Park District had reached out to the library specifically to use the auditorium in December while their facility is under construction, just for, I think, 4 or 5 days. And we talked about the possibility of doing a memo of understanding just for that event, or whether or not this would be a good time to do something the library and the Park District have talked about for a long time, which is an intergovernmental agreement that more extensively looks at our partnerships and makes sure that we have an agreement on how we can use each other's facilities on an ongoing basis. And so at the board meeting last month, we talked about looking into the IGA. Based on where we were at last month, I had talked with our attorneys about what would be included in a memo of understanding, and I expanded on that and looked at other IGAs that we have in place right now and drafted something for the Park District to look over, sent it over to them, and heard back that they need a little bit more time to review with their legal team as well as their leadership team. So they said they definitely wouldn't have any feedback by our June board meeting, and that July would be a stretch as well. The summer is busy here, but it's even busy at the Park District. So So I would anticipate them being able to give us some feedback and get back to us from their legal team closer to August. And then hopefully we'll have something to bring to the board to look at in August.
Thank you, Kelly. Does anybody have any questions for Kelly or any comments about the Park District IGA? Next up, just a discussion or an update on the room rental policy review working group. Just before this meeting, I know, Kate and Mara and I met to go over the 20 applications we received from members of the public to participate.
I know, isn't it great?
I know. And we appreciate everybody who applied and appreciate your willingness to step up and be a part of the group. We will be reaching out to 5 to 8 community members that we thought would make for a good group. And we also are going to have 3 staff members and participating on the group, as well as our attorney, Julie Tappendorf, and our facilitator, Biz Lindsay Ryan. And we'll be meeting on July 16th. First time.
Thanks for volunteering and supporting the board
Yeah, so
interests.
we're looking forward to an interesting series of meetings. So, yeah. So, all right, moving on to new business. Tonight, I wanted to have a brief conversation about local elections and the role of trustees. I suspect that many of you already know this, but because elections are coming down the pike, it never hurts to go over this kind of thing again. As I'm sure all of you are aware, we do have some of our local leaders who are running for various offices around town, and I thought it might not hurt to just review that bright line between your role here as trustees and your role as private citizens. So in your board packets, you had this fabulous cheat sheet that Kate put together. Thank you, Kate. Very good. And not too tediously long, and I think got right to the point. I am not going to read this word for word. You can all read. But I wanted to highlight just a few things. Obviously, civic engagement is very important. You wouldn't be sitting on this board if you didn't believe that. And I'm sure you all know that as private citizens, you can vote, support candidates, donate, go to political events, volunteer for candidates you support, or anything else. The key is just, we want to ensure that this kind of activity doesn't create sort of optics, any kind of optic that you, as a nonpartisan elected official, are speaking for the board or for this library. And so it's sort of a matter of kind of changing hats between what you're doing as a private citizen and what you're doing as a trustee. Not always easy here in this town where everybody kind of knows we serve on the board and they understand that, that's a role we play here in town. So the sheet does have some sort of do's, what you can do, what you can't do. And some of them I hope are somewhat obvious, like using library resources to express your support for a candidate. For example, we certainly wouldn't do that here at this board meeting, express our support for a candidate or use any library communication channels for this. We want to avoid maybe wearing our library name tags or library shirts when we're at, say, that fundraiser for that candidate we really like. And avoid using the library logo on maybe things if you're sending emails to people to ask them to support somebody, just steer clear of that. And this all matters because, again, we're a nonpartisan board and we're committed to serving the entire community. And if we wear our library trustee hats while undertaking political activity, it could create the impression that, that our board, again, or this library is supporting a particular political party or a particular candidate. And finally, I wanted to check out your thoughts on endorsements. Some of you may be asked to endorse candidates. It's happened to me in the past. And in fact, there's actually no statutory prohibition against this. You could very well use your name and your library trustee title to endorse a candidate. So there's really no legal problem with you doing that. However, there's a possibility it could create a perceptual problem if you don't handle it kind of carefully for all the reasons I just discussed. So I was hoping to hear your thoughts on regarding endorsements and what you think makes the most sense for this board. We're not going to pass a policy or take a vote on anything. And I'll share my own thoughts as well, but I wanted to hear from all of you about, what you felt about that. So does anybody want to share?
I'm curious how it was dealt with before. I mean, obviously, it doesn't mean that we have to follow the precedent, but I am just curious if you have any frame of reference.
Kate has a longer institutional memory than I do here, but certainly in the last round, our general advice we received was that you could endorse simply using the words elected official under your name. Now that was, again, there's no legal reason. You could be, I could be Janet Spector Bishop, Northbrook Library trustee and endorse. But our attorney's general best practice advice was that to avoid all of the things I've just talked about, that if we were going to endorse, we just used elected official, or I suppose you could just use your name. So that's been in the past. One of the things that I did ask Kate to look into was that a legal requirement, and it is not. I mean,
Right.
it is not.
That was the recommendation. And
Yeah.
other than in this last election, this has not been something that has been asked of any trustees,
Yep. I mean, but it was certainly asked in the
at
last.
least in the last decade.
Yeah.
I shouldn't speak for.
It was certainly asked in the last round, and it has taken place during this round.
Are you referring to request for an endorsement?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
It's not uncommon. Candidates ask for endorsements all the time. There's nothing.
It seemed like almost a natural progression with the caucus methodology and just the association of.
That could be true. I mean, but really looking forward, we've got seats open, in our state legislature, in Congress. And we know, or some of us know, folks, candidates, and sometimes this can come up. And I thought that before it really gets rolling, it might be just useful for the board to
Absolutely.
think out loud about this. And if we do have a consensus we want to follow, again, there is no legal reason you can't endorse using your Northbrook Library trustee title. The question is the optics and what maybe we feel as a group makes sense, if we feel as a group one way.
Are you looking for any kind of a policy?
No, we do not
Okay.
want to pass any kind of policy.
Okay.
I wondered if I was curious to know if all of the board did feel one particular way, or there was a real, board members who felt like, well, look, this is important to me and I'm gonna do it. And other board members who maybe felt like I would not do that. So that's what I was curious.
If I were asked for an endorsement, I would probably politely decline and say that, I would certainly be looking at candidates that support the mission statement of the library. I think is as far as I would take it, if that, but I think I would probably say that.
Thank you. Anybody else done any thinking?
I think that a lot of that is common sense.
Sure.
But we can't assume
No.
that potential board members are going to address that in the right way. And perhaps when people are applying or during interviews, that we make them aware.
We actually did think about perhaps moving forward, because if sometimes new folks get on boards and they may not really know
What you don't
this.
think
I mean,
about
it's
it.
not,
Right.
So that was another reason we thought we bring it up.
Put the cheat sheet in the onboarding packets for
There you
everyone
go.
forward, because I'm like, well, this will be
Yeah.
helpful. I will say with the caucus, we do not have any, some cycles, they reach out and ask for information about what the board does and different things. Other times I do not hear from them at all. So I think it would be great if the caucus was aware of this too.
Sure. I mean, that's the
Um,
reason I thought we'd have the conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has thoughts when they think about themselves. If your dear friend approaches you to endorse them because they're running for a local office, and I guess what I would say is this: if you have not thought about this, maybe it's good to think about it before that might happen to you. I will share, if you would like to know, I'll share my own feelings. I feel that I am a nonpartisan elected official. And therefore, for me, being asked to endorse a candidate who's running on a political party platform is uncomfortable. And I don't feel that in this role as a nonpartisan elected official, I could endorse candidates who are running as part of a political party, because for me, I would be concerned that this might signal that the library or supports, or the board, a trustee only supports one political party. That's
However,
my own.
if you endorse somebody without the Board of Trustees title, then that goes back to being the private person.
You certainly are welcome to do that. I'm going to venture a guess that you would be being asked because of your title.
Well, no, they would want me.
Of course they
I
would.
mean, that is the 1 out of 35,222 people exception. though.
Absolutely. So,
So just so we're clear, Janet, you would refrain as an
I-
individual as well.
I would offer up being an individual, but the reality is what they really,
Understood.
yeah. So
Okay.
that's my own feeling. And I was curious how other trustees felt. And I think even if it's something that has never crossed your mind, I thought it might be a good idea for it to cross your mind. So that
Definitely.
should you be approached, you felt comfortable with your answer. I do think if you choose to endorse using your library title, you've got to be very clear that it's you and not this library endorsing a
And
candidate.
not the board.
Yeah, not the board endorsing a candidate.
And please give me a heads up.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I know.
Just so we're aware, because then sometimes if people get tagged on social media and stuff,
That's
just
right.
so we're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to think about the optics or think about the perception.
Can I offer an additional
Please.
This is not something that we talked about, but I am not an elected official. And I am very aware that as someone who is the executive director of a unit of local government, people look at things. People look you up online, they look and see what you say, they look and see what you do. I will not donate to any political person or party because I know that that information is readily available. And I don't want people thinking, oh, you are only going to be aligned with this. Like that is how far I take it because of my worry of the perception.
Right.
And so that is, my husband thinks it's overboard, which is fair. He's allowed to think that. And I'm allowed to think that this is what I want to do in my role as the executive director, just to make sure that I am not giving any perception, because we really are here for every single person in our community. And that includes everyone that votes, everyone that doesn't vote, and people from all political
Absolutely.
parties.
And I do donate, but I certainly donate only as an individual and never tie it to this role.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think it was really important to be aware of this. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up.
Has there been any history of
Bless
bless you, of adverse impact of previous participation? As far as.
Do you mean as an individual?
As far as an individual sitting on the board, their endorsement having some type of impact on the board itself?
There's only been one
Yeah.
that happened in the last election
The last
cycle,
election cycle.
which was like 3 months ago.
Yeah,
And it wasn't negative or positive, it
No,
just happened.
it just happened.
Right.
and-
With a lot of
Like,
thought.
right,
and
just
checking
to
in with the
clarify, it
attorney.
wasn't negative or positive.
No, it wasn't.
It happened,
But it was brought up.
correct.
Yeah, and so we haven't had any negative repercussions. It was an endorsement for a nonpartisan role, though,
Yeah,
which I
that's
think
true.
also makes
It
that
helps a little, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're nonpartisan. I mean,
right.
Personally, I just, again, would steer.
Yeah.
Would steer for myself.
Yeah.
And I think Kate's right. If you do decide to go down the pathway of someone asks you to endorse them and you want to use your library title, please let Kate know that you're
Yeah.
going to do that. So we, you know,
Just a heads up.
yeah, so.
I wonder if we could also, then just extrapolating a little bit, I mean, it's one thing to do an endorsement, but then, you know, if you're participating in campaign, right, like your phone banking or door knocking or things like that, you know, you'd want to just make sure that, I mean, I would want to do that just as an individual.
Sure, and
but
and
that,
many-
like,
and
is
many of us
maybe a
do.
separate category.
So don't go
of
knocking on
endorsement,
doors
but-
with your library
Yeah,
shirt.
don't go
Right,
knocking on
we
doors.
got- yeah,
Library
or
shirt.
say
Say,
when you're
don't
calling
knock-
and-
Hi, I'm
yeah.
knocking on your door as a library trustee to
Yeah.
tell you that.
Right,
You know, I mean, there are people who know our roles in any case.
right.
And if someone asks, I certainly don't not
Yeah.
tell them on the library board, but certainly, you know, and it can be a little hard, but try, you know, making that
Yeah.
separation between that role, those roles.
If we need to, we can make hats in the collaboratory.
First,
Library member.
That, you know, I just wanted to sort of, thought it was good timing on that, and does anybody have anything else, or is that?
Yep.
Great. Just gotta find out where we are here.
Facilities.
Facilities, right. All right, another discussion. We're going to talk about facilities outsourcing, and Anna's gonna give us an update on that.
So just to provide a little history, we went through the process to determine if we were going to hire an employee for the facilities department or if we were going to outsource the facilities department, and then kind of change that up a little bit, and we outsource the facilities manager position, and all of the facilities staff members remained library employees. So we worked through an agreement, we did an RFP, we worked through an agreement, and we chose to go with ABM. And with ABM, we hired a gentleman by the name of Jason Halleck. He started on May 28th. He's been here approximately 24 days, but who's counting? He also took a week's vacation in there. So, but he has really shown like he is invested. He's trying to learn the systems, and I'm, you know, trying to hold him back a little bit so he doesn't get burnt out, and tell him everything is going to come with time. But he's doing a great job, and he's helped me tremendously with managing the elevator issues that we've had since he started, the parking lot issues, you know, the sealant or with the asphalt company. He has been working with Dan McQuinn and Tom Speltz, the interim facility managers that we hired for a period of time, to gain as much knowledge from them as he can. And Tom was here last week for a couple days and is again coming tomorrow to share that information with him. So things are going really well so far. And he will be here in August to kind of give a little bit of information on what he has learned while he's here.
What has it meant for you?
Excuse me?
What has it meant for you?
That I do not have to figure out all the elevator stuff on my own or deal with the parking lot by myself. Like, we are in tandem working together, and I was able to ask him to send an email to TK Elevator about some of the issues we were having. I mean, we worked together to write it, but he sent it and we haven't received a response. So then I'm going to send another email to the higher ups to say, you know, we really need some answers. So, I mean, we seem to be working well together, and it is just really nice to have the support of somebody that really knows facilities. Like, you know, I didn't. I was making it up as I went along, but it's nice to have him here.
I only say that because since Becky has come, and certainly Kelly is unto herself, but the resource that you provide is what you needed as well. Somebody to problem solve with, and you don't have to be a master in everything. And I'm just happy that we have moved in this direction.
Well, I appreciate it because it is a huge help and I can only see better things coming from this.
It's great. It's great.
And Anna didn't mention this, but with the elevator stuff, I think it's important to mention. So we had, the elevator modernization and it took longer than the company said it was going to, and Anna kept working with them. And then since the project is finished, there've been a number of issues. And Jason said to Anna, like, well, why don't we bring in, I know this isn't what the person is actually called, but like a forensic investigator to say, like, what is the actual problem with the elevator? There's someone that I used to work with when Jason was the manager at Union Station. Like, we can bring them in and they can do this. And he came in for a day and was able to pinpoint what the issue is, so we know definitively what is going on so that we can hold the previous vendor who did the work accountable. And that's not something that Anna would have had she wouldn't have known. And so that is something that I think already we have seen the value in just knowing, oh, there's someone out there who does this specific thing that can help us with this issue we're having, instead of continuing to try and fight with the vendor who's saying, like, it's not us. Like, no, it is. And we have a report.
I thought, did you select the elevator vendor through the Omnia channel previously, and are they able to help with?
No, they just
They
do
wash
the
their hands
contracts.
of it,
And
yeah.
I mean, to be fair to TK Elevator, they have done projects with other libraries and those projects went fine. So we just threw the bad straw with this particular project. So because I did follow up with the libraries who I had checked references with.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my gosh, what what had happened with your projects? And they're like, oh yeah, no, everything went great, blah, blah, blah. They're like, we're so sorry to hear all the problems you've been having. I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, we just drew a bad straw with this one.
And the nice thing about ABM is when the gentleman's on vacation, Jason,
Yes.
correct? It's a group, so like they have backup.
They will have backup and it's really nice. I have asked and it has been approved that Tom Speltz, the person who has been working here in the interim, will be Jason's.
That's great.
We'll
Yeah.
fill in for Jason
He
as
already
long
knows
as
about the place,
he's
yeah.
available, but from what I've been told, Tom was told he has to make himself available. So as long as Jason gives us enough of notice, it should all work out okay. So like in July and August, Jason has some days scheduled and Tom will be filling in for him. So it'll be good because Tom has knowledge and we don't have to retrain him, and so it'll be great.
And you don't need to get a individual development plan for like chiller repair now, right?
Right.
Any other questions for Anna? All right, thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the Illinois Public Library Annual Report. Kelly is going to go over the IPLAR for this fiscal year 25, and she'll answer questions. And the board does need to formally approve this because it needs to be filed by June 30th. So.
Thanks, everyone. So there will be some action on this item. In the packet is the IPLAR report in all its table-y glory. I have some high-level highlights. I did some slides so we can look at some of the data that's within that report. So first off, just as there we go. A reminder to our trustees who have been on the board, and for Adam and Bryce, you probably haven't heard of the IPLAR. I'll give you a quick overview of what it is. So the IPLAR is annual data that is submitted to the Illinois State Library that then goes to a public library survey called PLS, as well as our much talked about Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS. And they use that as benchmark data. The state also keeps the data in counting opinions, which is the format that you see in the packet. And so we do also have the ability to look at benchmark data from across the state with other libraries that have submitted the IPLAR. Sort of the sad news this year is we don't know what's going to happen with the IMLS piece of the data. Right now, the big beautiful bill does not include funding for IMLS for next year. And so the state of that institution next year and what they would be doing with any kind of data like this is unknown. Another thing that the IPLAR was often used for was the Library Journal Star Library Initiative, which is also currently suspended. It was suspended 2 years ago. We went out as a 5-star library so we could maintain that rating forever and ever. And that is the highest rating. So, but it is still a worthy endeavor. And also required of us. It's encoded in statute, as Kate likes to remind us, that we submit the IPLAR. So I don't think it is something that is going away, but it may change depending on what happens with IMLS. But we still do want to take a look at our statistics sort of at a high level and do an annual review because we do get that comparison data. We fill out other surveys throughout the year that ask for fiscal year data. And so we are able to use that throughout the year. And it's also used in a PLA initiative called Benchmark that we submit to, so we can look at that data and compare nationwide with other libraries. So all of this data comes together through all of the departments that work in the library. Many staff members are responsible for reporting portions of the data, and the report is a result of all of that work. So I do want to make sure to acknowledge all of the staff that contribute to this. What you are seeing tonight is based off of our previous monthly statistic data collection. So it will be even better next year when we have our new data dashboard and visualization to work off of. So it's just a few notable statistics and trends from the IPLAR. Our library card sign-up numbers continue to grow. We saw a dip in 2023. 2021, 22, and 23 in library card holders, partially because of the pandemic, partially because of database cleanup. And over the last 2 years, we have started to see some recovery from that, which is really exciting. One of the reasons for that is we did expand the ability for children who live in areas that are not served by libraries to get library cards. We do have in our library card policy that there is no fee for those under 18 who live in underserved areas. We also provide cards for veterans. And we've worked really hard, our circulation and marketing teams have worked really hard to promote library card sign up. So I'm happy to see that bounce back coming and the trend to continue from last year. Our meeting room bookings this year were down, and the main thing that I would attribute that to is the anticipation of large outside room booking events happening several times throughout the last fiscal year. In anticipation of that, we did have to block out all of our meeting rooms to ensure that we had adequate staffing and security for those events. And so there were several days throughout the year where the meeting rooms, which are the civic room that we're sitting in right now, the Pollock room, the auditorium, and the interactive classroom, were booked just to ensure that we could handle a large influx of people coming in. Our study room bookings are literally going off the chart. So those continue to grow. We had almost 2,000 more study room bookings this year than we did the previous year. And so that has been really amazing. I also will note, I don't have a chart for this, but our daily visits are also up this year. So we are seeing a lot of traffic coming into the library. Lots of folks are coming in. So we've got the library card signups up, we've got the study rooms up, and we've got visits climbing. So that's great. Our physical collection has maintained steady. This is a really boring chart because we are sort of at capacity for where we need to be in our facility for our collections. And so our staff who do our selecting, mainly our adult services and youth services staff, work really hard to make sure that we are not overstuffing our shelves by selecting materials that they know that the public is looking to check out, as well as keeping up with weeding and discarding materials that are no longer being used. So the fact that this is steady and a boring chart is a really good thing because it means that our selectors are doing a really great job working within the space that we have. This is a really interesting look at our materials loan. I just wanted to point out these top three break out by collection, so adult, teen, and youth, and they're physical materials only. The bottom is our total circulation, and it includes ebooks and downloadables. We saw a tremendous drop in physical materials checked out for adults and a bit of a drop for teens and youth as well. However, our overall circulation did not drop significantly. Our ebook and downloadable audio made up the difference in that. And so that is a really interesting trend that we'll want to watch. Even as we're planning for the master plan, and what our facility needs to look like, if we are keeping our collections steady and we're seeing a decline in physical item checkout and an increase in the downloadable and ebook area, that's something we want to watch. This is the first year this has happened. It may be an anomaly. We're not sure why it happened, but it is something we're going to want to keep an eye on because it will help us make informed decisions about space needs going forward in the library. I do also have a call into CCS to see if they change the way they're providing the physical item checkout, but I don't think that they are. So, and then also just finally wanted to point out our staff development and training continues to be a priority for the library. We are an institution of lifelong learning, and we encourage our staff to participate in professional development and continuing education. This year, we did see an increase in the amount spent, and that is attributed to staff being able to do more off-site training. We did have more away conferences this year, and we also increased our staff training budget for Staff Development Day, which we did see some reward for that. Staff said that they found our Staff Development Day training to be really rewarding. They liked the variety that we were able to offer, but definitely have also heard from staff that there could be even more improvement in that. So that is an area where we continue to grow and develop for our staff. So that's a quick overview of the IPLAR. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
Thank you, Kelly. Does anybody have any questions for Kelly or comments about the always masterful presentation of the?
Are the trends with physical media versus digital, is that, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call it a trend, is that behavior happening elsewhere? Is that?
You know, it depends. It's not something that we can say is happening across the board, even locally in Northern Illinois, and certainly not nationally. So it does at this point feel more like a one-off. But I mean, we still hear people like reading physical books. Younger people had been trending more toward physical material checkouts. Over the last few years, any reading I've done on that, teens and 20s prefer to read fiction, certainly in paper, because they spend so much time on screens and devices. So it was a surprising trend to see this year.
We have seen since the pandemic a massive shift, and this is not what's represented, what Kelly was talking about in the audiobooks. So we, you know, the pandemic certainly shifted for people learning about downloadable audiobooks, and it now is like 20% physical checkouts, 80% downloadables. And people are still checking out, some physical items. So it's interesting to see how that I know that we also are one of the few libraries in the area that bounced back physical circulation wise during and after the pandemic. Most of the other libraries saw a significant dip and it stayed dipped. We actually, and I attribute a lot of this to the popular picks in the lobby remodel. We actually saw a dip, but then it bounced up and then has been higher. So this is, as Kelly said, it'll be interesting to see if this is a one-off or an ongoing.
I still go back to, I don't mean to be picking at it, but the whole idea of professional development and the quality of off-site conferences, presentations, given the budget. I remember asking you, how do you know that those are meaningful? They could be expensive and people get nothing out of it. So I would ask that there's a special attention paid to the effectiveness and the quality of where they're going, in contrast to having something here that's meaningful in different ways.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. I am excited that we've updated how we're collecting data about continuing education. So as part of the monthly statistics dashboard, we now have a Google form where staff are reporting each continuing education event that they attend. And that form does include 2 questions where they talk about what they learned and how they can apply it to their work here. So that, I think, I'm excited about that because it's not anything, hopefully, that's too arduous for anybody to fill out, but it also just helps folks focus on, oh, what did I learn? How do I want to use it in my day-to-day?
And I think that even one question, which is what I'm going to do as a result of what I learned today. I'd like to know not what they thought of it, but what they're going to do with it.
Yeah,
And it may be, I'm going to do some more research. It doesn't have to be,
right.
I think, again, it's how is it going to impact? Because the costs are high.
Yeah. And this is one of the things that during the data dashboard work that, Kelly and Susan and Kim and I worked on, we had extensive conversations about this because we also don't want them just filling out a form. We want the managers then talking to the staff about, okay, here's what you learned, here's how you're going to apply it. And now how am I going to help make sure that that is happening so that we have kind of that full cycle happening. Yeah. I have a statement that I say in every presentation I give, which is that libraries are institutions of learning and we need to be lifelong learners. Part of being a lifelong learner isn't just going to stuff, it's actually applying it. And so
And picking things that are meaningful and helpful. Some of them have a lot of dash and glamour and big names, and you don't come out with anything you can use. Thanks, Kelly.
Sure. Anything else?
Anything else? All right. Well, I'm asked for a motion to approve the Illinois Public Library Annual Report for fiscal year 25 as presented. Second?
Manish.
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. We are now going to go into closed session and I'll need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to 5
I know that the Attorney General has said that we need to have this.
Yeah, no. 120/2C1, for appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
So moved.
I almost forgot I asked. Second. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Jennifer, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Baser,
Yes.
Ms. Buden.
Yes.
Ms. Christian,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Ms. Becker Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Unical.
Yes.
Thank you. As we are going into closed session and will not have any actions after closed session, and we'll move straight to adjourning, we are going to be stopping the recording at this time. And go into closed session.